It is time for the best tournament in sports. Welcome to episode 63 of the Wise Guys Sports Show. Michael, it is finally here.
It is, first of all, happy St. Patrick's Day to you, James.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
As I wear my green, which is unfortunately Jets and Mets. But it is the best tournament there is. It is what we hoped for when we said we were getting a playoff in college football, but hell no, we will never get this. It's March Madness, Jim. Can you believe we're here already?
It's, this is the one time of year where it doesn't matter what sport you watch. Everybody is watching March Madness. There are some people, even people who don't follow sports, are watching March Madness. There are people who are going to inadvertently tune in because all of their shows on TBS, TNT, and CBS and True TV are being preempted for the next 3 weeks.
It's a beautiful thing, Jim, when a sport that honestly gives us the most drama, gives us the best storylines, brings us to the point where people who don't even give a damn are stuck watching it.
The only regular programming that you're going to have is going to be your local news. All of your soaps, your talk shows, your game shows, all of it is going to be preempted for the next few weeks.
That's beautiful.
It's just so wonderful.
It really is. I'm not the biggest college basketball guy because normally, as of this and this year included, my team is shit. But I think they're one of the snubs, to be honest with you. Listen, I'm going to be tuning in. Oh. Very nice. Wow. That's a great pull, man. So who's Vern Lundquist?
You can be, because I'd actually rather be Bill Raftery going, they come out setting up Miniman.
Oh my God.
That was the old 1988 CBS intro.
I would say that's the old intro.
Right. That's the one that I grew up. That's the one that still gives me chills.
I think that's the first one I heard.
Yep.
I figure I was about 9. Yeah, you were 10, I was 9. Yeah, that's the first one I heard.
So our field of 68 on the men's and women's side are both sets. We're going to break down all 4 regions to the best of our knowledge here. We haven't done extreme deep dives here on this. We've got the bracket set up. We'll go by the ESPN page, for the time being. Actually, let me see if the CBS one's laid out a little bit better here.
It usually is. Usually when I used to fill them in, I would print the CBS bracket.
Yeah, that's typically the one that I run as well. Uh, no, I don't want the pick'em game.
No, no. So everybody who's confused as to why Jim and I are here tonight, we figured, why are we going to do a show the night before Selection Sunday? School school night be damned.
There we go.
But
The CBS one is
it's
set up so much better.
good. It's not going to be our normal 2 hour and 25, 30-minute thing. This is going to be tournament, break, really just a couple of storylines in a abbreviated blast, and then the translator, and then bed, to be very honest.
Yeah, it is a school night, and we're all going to be up. We're basically all going to be up first thing tomorrow morning, probably filling out brackets.
Yeah,
I know I'm going to be doing that before I go to bed tonight.
exactly. So, Jim, let's get to it, man. Let's see what we got.
We're going to lead off here. We're going to start in the East region. Now, first of all, your 4 number 1 seeds are North Carolina in the West, Purdue in the Midwest, Houston in the South, and Connecticut in the East. We have UConn set up here, and then we'll actually get the more formal bracket layout here in a little bit. But any surprises to you with those 4 number 1s, Mike? Because on the 2 line, you've got Arizona as the 2 in the West, Tennessee is the 2 in the Midwest with Purdue, Marquette the 2 in the South with Houston, and then Iowa State the 2 in the East with UConn. Anything stand out to you here?
That the SEC champions of 4.
Yeah, it's Tennessee going out in the semifinals to Auburn. Definitely, I think it was very deserved for them to get knocked down to the 2 line on this. And I tell
would
you
have dropped
what,
them to a 3.
I don't know. It's the 3 line. There's some heavy hitters on the 3 line, but there's a couple of teams that you're a little iffy about, and we'll actually see this as we go. But UConn is going to open up on Friday in Brooklyn against 16-seeded Stetson. You've got number 2 Iowa State against South Dakota State Thursday in Omaha. You're going to have the Big Ten champion Illinois Fighting Illini opening up on Thursday in Omaha against Morehead State. The SEC champion Auburn against the Ivy League walk-off winners, the Yale Bulldogs, Friday in Spokane. That 6-11 game, BYU and Duquesne, is very interesting because BYU, there was a lot of people who were thinking that not so much BYU being a bubble team, but BYU had a possibility of getting onto one of the first 4 lines, and Duquesne making their first appearance in the NCAA tournament since 1977. Washington State is the 7 going up against Drake, and Florida Atlantic rounds us out here as the 8-9 game against Northwestern Friday in Brooklyn.
Best game of this here. Let's see what the Big Ten tournament champ does against Morehead.
I agree. But that BYU Duquesne game's got something intriguing for me. But I'll tell you this much: that San Diego State UAB, that 5-12 game, there's something to be said about that because UAB was one of the last at-large teams not to end up being with a play-in. So they were one of the last at-large teams. And we all see that there's usually one of those that sneak in. Remember, UCLA did it the year in the bubble and got all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I don't see a big upset here, to be honest with you, Jim, other than I like Morehead to give Illinois fits. I don't think Auburn's going to have a problem with Yale. 12-5 is that really an upset? Really? I mean, how many times do we see a 12-5?
Yeah, we've got a couple of really good 12-5s in this the 12-5 and the 7-10. Those are always upset alerts, and then so once in a while you'll see a 6-11, but it's but that 5-12, there's always somebody who's going to pull an upset. The key is is there going to be a mid-major that's got a possibility to pull the upset? I don't know if I see it here. I think Yale could give Auburn a game with the way that Yale can bang on the inside, but I just don't know if they're fast enough to take down Auburn.
Yeah, no, Auburn impressed the hell out of me winning the SEC tournament. Illinois, of course, wins the Big Ten tournament, ousting Wisconsin earlier today. Congratulations to Illinois after beating Wisconsin, who beat both I want to say both Ohio State and Purdue to get to the Big Ten championship game.
And good enough to land Wisconsin on the 5 line when we get to the South region.
Yeah. Wisconsin was very impressive in the tournament. I don't know much about Drake's squad. I don't trust many Pac-12 teams. Again, I don't see this being the region where we had the big upset.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put the lineup here, and then we'll actually shift over to the CBS page. That should not have happened. That's my bad.
That's all right.
So if we actually look over in the East region here, that Stetson and UConn game, naturally you actually have the fact that UConn is probably going to end up winning this one going away. UConn 7-2 against the top 25, 81st in strength of schedule, but when you're as good as UConn is, you don't have to be. 81 points a game, not all that, all that great considering really, the fact that Stetson out of the Atlantic Sun, 77.5. Their last 10 games, UConn, that one loss here was in the as you can see.
That was a Creighton, right?
Yes, that was the Creighton loss.
And Stetson lost to North Florida, and is that
University
Queens
of Queens
College?
Yep.
The thing that you didn't mention on the UConn line, Jim. If you go up, UConn's only giving up 64 points a game.
Yeah, that's where I think that this is not going to be
defensively.
Yeah, it's this. I mean, we can pretty much pencil in UConn. Let's actually, we're going to go right down the pipe here. That Iowa State South Dakota game.
This ain't football.
No.
Football, I give South Dakota a chance.
South Dakota State coming out of the Summit Conference. Iowa State winners of the Big 12. 6-5 against the top 25. Not that impressive, but that strength of schedule of 30 is very, very impressive, especially also when you look at that margin of victory being 14 points on average for a 27-17. There's a lot of people who felt that this could have been Iowa State on a 1 line.
I don't know. I like the 4. The one I would have taken out for Iowa State is North Carolina. Because Houston and UConn.
That's where I was leaning as well, because Iowa State won the Big 12, knocking off Kansas in the process. And North Carolina went out in the ACC, and North Carolina lost to NC State in the ACC finals.
Yeah. What conference is Houston in?
Houston is in the Big 12.
So Iowa State beat Houston and get to win the conference?
I'm not sure if they beat them in the finals. Houston, I think, might have gone out in the semifinals.
Let me get this straight. We have 3 teams on the 1 line in this tournament that did not win their conference championship tournament.
Purdue did not. Houston did not. UConn did. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, now I see the first problem with the brackets.
And then if you look at the 2 line, Arizona did not win the Pac-12. Tennessee did not win the SEC. Marquette did not win the Big East, and Iowa State did win the Big 12. On the 3 line, Kentucky did not win the SEC. Creighton did not win the Big East. Baylor did not win the Big 12, and Illinois did. So, of the major conference winners out there, Auburn out of the SEC is on the 4 line. Illinois is on a 3 line. UConn
A
uh,
one.
is on a 1. And now here's where this East region is loaded because those are 4 major conference champions in the top half of that bracket.
The East always seems to me like it's the region that is loaded every year.
Yes.
But the thing that I'll mention about this is now 2 separate committees that set a tournament that have taken conference champions and basically been like this.
Yeah, but
Now, granted, all 4 number ones won their regular season conference championships, so
yeah.
there's that. But it's not football where you have one game; it's a conference tournament, and you had teams that went on runs in the tournament that have been ignored.
And this is where I think you might be onto something here with this Illinois and Morehead State game because look at that. Even though the Illinois is 15th in the net rank, and Morehead's way down at 106. Look at that record versus the top 25. Illinois is 0-4, 1-4, even though
Look at the defensive numbers, James.
Strength the schedule.
Look at the defensive numbers.
Yeah, Morehead likes to grind out 26-8 in the Ohio Valley and only giving up 62 points a game. That's 10 points fewer than the Big Ten champion who got hot.
This is what I'm talking about. And this would be typical Illinois. If they win the Big Ten championship, they get a high seed and they go out in the first round. I like Morehead in this game. If I was picking a bracket for money, this would be my big upset in round 1. No pun intended.
That 4-13 Auburn-Yale game, look at those defensive numbers. Both of these teams like to grind out. Auburn can move a little bit more, but Yale as a 13 with a net ranking of 81. And a strength of schedule in the top 80 as well.
That's big. Well, look, the Ivy League always sends a champion to this tournament that's a very well coached, very well disciplined, and very talented team. Princeton last year, and then we referenced it a few weeks ago. Their teams of the '90s, which won games and made runs into the tournament. Do I think the Yaleys get past Auburn? No, I think Auburn wins this game. But out of the most competitive games we'll have, as far as statistically and even final score, I think this is going to be the one that does that.
And this is actually, as we've seen so far, that of the users pick, Yale at that 10% is so far the highest lower seed to first one to break double digits. That 5-12 San Diego State UAB game, this one probably not as competitive as we would think, even though it's a little bit closer on paper. San Diego State 3-0 against the top 25, a rank of 21st. But look at UAB coming out of the American way down at 105 and only a 2-point margin of victory.
Yeah, no. San Diego State can play some defense.
And especially that third-ranked strength of schedule. And I want to say I'd have to go back and look, but didn't San Diego State make a really deep run last year?
I believe so.
That 6-11 BYU Duquesne game, this one's got a couple of makings of being a lot better than people give it credit for. Look at Duquesne, 23-11 out of the A10. But that 21st strength of schedule, even though their net rank is way down at 83, but BYU down at 72nd, but a net rank of 12th and 4-5 coming out of the Big 12.
How far BYU get in the tournament? The Big 12 tournament, that is.
Oh, let me take a look. BYU, no, that's actually laying everything out here. not giving me what I want. BYU went out in the quarterfinals against Texas Tech. They lost by 14. They had a bye into the second round, blew past UCF by 14, and then lost to Texas Tech. And then Texas Tech lost to Houston.
No, I think BYU's on upset alert.
There's part of me that thinks that Duquesne, I mean, the last couple of years we've had a couple of double-digit matchups in the second round. That Washington State Drake game, really interesting because both of these teams love to run. This is probably the most competitive one we've had, and as you can see on that graphic, there's a lot of people picking Drake to pull an upset here. They've got more wins. They've got more conference wins. The Missouri Valley isn't what it used to be, but it's still a very competitive conference. And a lot of their numbers, if you look down the board, they match up very well.
They do. I like Drake in this one, to be honest with you. If Drake pushes the envelope, granted, Washington State plays a lot of defense, but I don't think there's a lot of high-scoring teams in the Pac-12 this year, as good as the Pac-12 normally is with UCLA, USC, yada, yada. I think Drake can does not sound like this. I think they can run him out of the gym.
And I mean, look at here is that their most recent win. I want to say was taking down Indiana State, who basically knocked them out of the tournament. So I like Drake here as well. I mean, we got 3 double-digit seeds coming out of the first round here.
Yeah.
And then the final game, we actually have Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. This one, I like Florida Atlantic because remember, Florida Atlantic made that Final Four run last year, 39th in net rank, 67 in strength of schedule. But they love to push the pace. Look at that. They outscore Northwestern by nearly 10 points a game.
Yeah, but the makeup in that is going to be what Northwestern's defense does. Only giving up 69 points a game. You know what, Jim? I'm going to respectfully disagree and take Northwestern in this one. There's a little Big Ten homer in me, obviously. But it's a coin flip for me.
I personally feel I got to go Florida Atlantic. I got to pull a little rank here. It's because coming off that Final Four year, going up against UConn could be a very, very interesting matchup in the second round.
Oh, that could be a fun game. Which side do you want to go to next? You want to go South or Midwest?
Let's actually go here. Let's go to the Midwest.
All right.
So we've got a couple of play-in games here. We've got number 16 Montana State against number 16 Grambling State, which still, until the tournament expands to 96, it's not the first round. It's not the opening round. It's still the play-in game. Stop kidding yourself. Those are going to take place. That graphic is incorrect. Those are actually going to be the Wednesday games in Dayton, both of those.
Okay.
So Purdue will actually get number 1. Purdue will actually get the winner of the Montana State game in Indianapolis on Friday. Number 2, Marquette out of the Big East will play Western Kentucky Friday in Indianapolis. 3rd, Creighton will play the 14 Akron Zips out of the MAC Thursday in Pittsburgh. You got to feel
go Zips.
You got to feel for Akron. Not only do they actually knock off their rival Kent State, but then they get to go to Pittsburgh.
Poor bastards.
Yeah. Kansas will get Samford Thursday in Salt Lake City. Gonzaga will be against McNeese State in possibly the most intriguing game in the entire first round, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. South Carolina will get Oregon, the champions of the Pac-12, Thursday in Pittsburgh. Texas Tech will get the Virginia-Colorado play-in winner Thursday in Charlotte. So that Virginia-Colorado game is going to be on Tuesday. And then Utah State will get TCU Friday in Indianapolis. Mike, anything jump out here with you so far?
I was hoping Akron wouldn't get blown out in the first round.
I I think right now Akron could potentially give Creighton a game, but I think Creighton's out for blood after the way that they kind of got screwed out of the Sweet 16 last year, and they bring a lot of guys back. Ryan Kalkbrenner, one of the better names in college basketball, but there's really very, very few players in the country playing as good as he is right now.
That one, and I think the big upset on this one is the 12-5 again.
And we're going to break that one down here.
Yeah, that's why when you said that, I thought about it for a second. I'm like, oh, Jim's setting us up for a 12-5 upset.
So we'll go over here. Purdue against it doesn't matter who actually they get. They're not going to, with Zach Edey's last ride, they're not going to mess this up again.
Keyword there being again.
I'll tell you what, if something happens and if I would say if Purdue goes out before the Elite Eight, Matt Painter's job could be in jeopardy.
Oh, speaking of, you see Ohio State hired their interim full-time?
Yes, I did.
Smart move.
Did you actually see where his predecessor ended up?
You sent me something.
Yeah. Chris Holtman ended up at DePaul, who lost their last 20 straight games, and they were all in Big East play. DePaul finished 3-29 on the season.
Yeah, I say, weren't they like 3-6 to start the year?
Yeah,
and they just started getting smoked.
Yep.
Yeah, he's good. They'll listen. He'll be an immediate impact. They'll be 5-25 next year.
I believe I got some of this backwards because of the way that I was trying to put it together. So,
Midwest bottom right.
I knew that, but I think I've got some of these out of order here. So, to kind of ignore the original graphic at that point. So the 215 in this is actually Tennessee against our old friends, the St. Peter's Peacocks.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you did. All right, you mixed the regions up. Okay.
Yeah, a few of them I've actually, because I was trying to go back and forth with the schedule as they were coming out, and I was putting that graphic together. I should have just done this.
Dude, you're good.
So Tennessee 24-8. A little surprising that they did not win the SEC, but I don't see lightning striking twice here with St. Pete.
No, Tennessee had a phenomenal season. I think the 5% of people who are picking St. Peter's are picking St. Peter's because it's St. Peter's. And they've already done it once.
And also the hatred against Tennessee.
Well, there's that too. Not Bruce. Who's our coach? Pro's at Auburn. He used to be there. Never mind. No, Bruce Pro used to be there. Who is it?
Rick Barnes.
Yeah, no, Bruce Pro used to be there.
Yeah.
Speaking of hated coaches, you see Huggins is up for the Louisville job.
Oh, God.
Thought we were done with him.
We thought the same thing about Rick Pitino, but, he's
such a crybaby.
Yeah, but St. John's was one of the first four out, and I love it. So, especially with his pride, do they turn down an NIT berth?
Yeah, he's such a douchebag.
The 3-14 game, that Creighton-Akron game, sorry, Zips, you guys are going home. I think this one could get ugly.
It could. Both teams giving up less than 70 points a game. Akron's only 6-4 in their last 10. Yes, Creighton 7-3. But yeah, it's gonna suck.
Creighton losing to Providence there. That's so Creighton went out a little bit earlier than people anticipated, but good on Creighton for getting a 3 in this year's tournament. It's one of their highest rankings that I can remember. Being a Creighton fan, going all the way back to the Kyle Korver days.
But Creighton got that based on that win against UConn, right?
I think it was the cap of their season, but and especially blowing them out the way that they did. But then
Yeah.
again, if you look at that part of the graphic, they lost at Providence earlier, like in late February, and then Providence got them again. So there's always that one team that just kind of gets their number.
Yeah, no, I see that, and we're going hatless. This has been in the trunk of the car for a while. A little itchy.
Kansas and Sanford, the 4-13 game. Listen, Kansas has been banged up, and especially let's look at one of these pieces right here. Look at that. Look at their last two losses. Houston got them by 30, and then Cincinnati crushed them by 20 in the Big 12 tournament.
Jim, I'm taking Sanford in this game all the way, just because of Kansas' injuries. Hey, listen, you know what?
Kansas losing 4 out of 5, but I don't see. I think if there's one team that a lot of people are thinking upset, I don't think it's Kansas. Bill Self does not lose in the first round.
I don't
Now,
think Bill Self's going to have much of a choice here.
yeah, but let's also think is that you know there's always one of those teams that you think they're going to go on upset alert, and then I'm not saying Kansas is built to make a deep run, because this is actually I personally feel that this is the most wide open of any of the four brackets because I'm not 100% sold on Purdue or Tennessee and Creighton. Could Kansas have enough in them to possibly get a couple of guys healthy throughout the course of the next couple of weeks and make a run?
I don't think so. Um, I don't think they have enough juice to do that. Um, sorry, I'm filling in what I would do so we can kind of compare because we're going with your picks on here. I'm just filling in where we disagree. Uh, we both had Duquesne, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
not Duquesne.
Not Duquesne. I mean, I'm surprised we both picked Duquesne considering where they are.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna skip that 5-12 game for a minute.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
The 6-11 South Carolina and Oregon game. Oregon, the champions of the final champions of the Pac-12 as we know it, and then South Carolina, no, not the undefeated ladies coming out of the SEC here. This is a very kind of middle of the road game. It's a good thing it's a 6-11 for how close some of these are. Oregon 7-3 in their last 10, making that run through. Let's also be honest, knocking out Arizona in the semifinals of the Pac-12 tournament, little stunning there with that 8-point win. Considering just a couple of weeks ago they got blown out by 20.
Yeah, no, I was surprised by that. When I saw that Oregon won the Pac-12, the final Pac-12 tournament, I was shocked. I was shocked who they played in the finals too. By the way,
Yes, Colorado. It's and Colorado is one of the playing games in the next game we're going to talk about. For me, I like South Carolina here. I think outside of Arizona, it was a very down year for the final year of the Pac-12. Football, yes. Basketball, nah.
I'm going to go upset here. I'm going to go Oregon. I don't know why. It's just something about the Ducks right now that make me think they're going to win this thing.
The 7-12.
Can't tell you why.
Go ahead.
Can't tell you why, but it just something tells me the Ducks.
The 7-12 game is going to be Texas against either Virginia or Colorado State. Colorado State, a lot of people kind of was one of those bubble teams, as was Virginia. These were two of the last four in. Texas 3-8 against the top 25, or there's a possibility if you take maybe 2 or 3 of those wins, those losses, and flip them around. Texas is on a 4 line here.
Yeah, no, Texas had a halfway decent season. For them to get one of the play-in games, I'm shocked, to be honest with you.
I mean, at least for them to fall to 7 to get a play-in winner.
Yeah, I mean that. I would have had them on a 6, but that's just me. They're both five. Are they both 5-5 in their last 10?
5-5 in their last 10. Virginia
Well, that's if it's
got knocked
Virginia.
out by NC State in the ACC tournament, and then Texas fell to Kansas State.
I don't know, Jim.
I like Texas here because Virginia and Colorado State did not really impress me down the stretch. I think the
That's
5
true.
5 is something that could be a little bit manageable, especially with the 2 extra days. And there's a lot of people that are going to say, well, Texas is going to be nearly a full week since they played, whereas Virginia and Colorado, the winner of that one is going to be in hopefully a grinder, a couple of days earlier. But there's something about me that actually likes Texas. I think this bracket falls a little bit more chalk than the East.
No, I think so too. I think the East is, like I said, the East is normally the one that's a little tougher to get through. So we got the 8-9 because we were saving the 12-5 for the end, right?
Yep. Utah State and TCU, the 8-9 game. Could this game on paper be any closer? Look at that. Outside of the record against the top 25, their net ranking is only 4 apart. Their strength of schedule, there's a little bit of a gap, but they're both still in the top 90. The points per game is basically a push. The opponent's points per game is basically a push.
Yeah, no, this is going to be the best one.
Utah State 8-2 in their last 10. TCU only 5-5. But that's 5-5 in the Big 12 against 8-2 out of the Mountain West.
And it's losing to San Diego State in the Mountain West Championship game. In the
exactly, and especially considering they beat San Diego State at home just a few weeks earlier. I do like TCU in this one. I'm kind of leaning towards the users here, even with the 5-5.
I'm going chalk.
Now let's get to the one that we're hoping.
Let's get to this one because this one's going to be
Gonzaga
off the charts.
Out of the West Coast Conference, not the champions of the West Coast Conference.
Who did win the West Coast Conference, by the way?
St. Mary's.
Delhi.
Going at 25-7, making their 24th consecutive appearance in the NCAA tournament. There are only 2 programs that have longer appearances. Michael, can you name them?
2 programs longer appearances in the tournament.
Yes.
Kansas.
Kansas is one at 33, I want to say. Michigan State with Tom Izzo, 29 in a row.
I was going to say, I was thinking either Michigan State or North Carolina, but I was trying to remember because I know Carolina had a couple of years where they did not get in.
Yep. The 3 longest appearances in the country right now. Kansas 1, Michigan State 2, Gonzaga number 3. Gonzaga, the last time they didn't make the tournament, Mark Few was an assistant.
How long has he been their head coach?
Let's see. 1999 was his first year as taking over for somebody else we're going to talk about coming up here in, I believe, the next bracket.
Wow.
But McNeese State, only one of 4 teams going into the tournament with 30 wins, with 30 or more wins. The strength of schedule, way, way, way down there. But boy, can this team run, and man, does this team play defense.
They do, especially in a lot of the mid-majors or the smaller conferences. You see teams scoring a ton of points because they like to run. They like to up-tempo. They shoot a lot of threes. McNeese plays defense. McNeese plays lockdown defense.
McNeese does play lockdown defense, but here's the thing. Look at the last 10. 92, 76, 81, 87, 83, The grinder against Lamar, 87, 74, 105, and 74. McNeese has 5 players on their roster that shoot 40% or better from deep.
Who the hell do I think they are? The Warriors?
Mark Few's got his hands full with the Zags.
Is it just me or does Gonzaga normally have a first-round opponent that's going to give them their hands full?
And yet what's funny is that Gonzaga, when they're seated usually on the 4 line or above, everyone thinks, okay, could this be the year that the Zags break through? Because the Zags are typically a blue blood, but you look down and see that 25-7, 14-2 in the West Coast Conference, they're on the 5 line. What was wrong with Gonzaga this year?
But I don't think there's anything wrong with Gonzaga. I think it was more there was a lot more good ball played at the top end of the brackets.
I completely agree, but I like McNeese here. I do. There's something about this.
I got to be honest with you. That's where I was going with this too.
I think McNeese is they're not as tall, but they can run and they can shoot from anywhere on the floor. And again, the lockdown defense with that, let me throw the graphic back up here. The 61.5 points per game. I mean, you look at Gonzaga, they outrank them everywhere here, and it's really not even close because you look at the 5 points a game, it's nearly 5 full points a game. It's 4.5 points a game more that they score. But the fact that they give up nearly 7, they give up 7.5 points fewer.
Yeah, that's the big one. They're going to play lockdown. That's going to be a close game, but I think McNeese comes out with it. Hey, can we do the West next?
We absolutely can.
Good, because I just did the West quick while you were telling me all about McNeese. I was listening. But I'd like to circle 2 games if I could. The 7-10 and the 2-15.
Okay. The West region headed by number 1 seed North Carolina. They'll get the Howard versus Wagner play-in winner on Thursday in Charlotte. The number 2 seed Arizona Wildcats will take on Long Beach State Thursday in Salt Lake City. 3rd seed Baylor will take on 14th seed Colgate Friday in Memphis. Alabama will get Charleston. Both teams going cross country. There was even a joke on the CBS selection show that maybe they can hop a flight together since they're both traveling cross country.
And if I can interrupt you, this will be like the 3rd time in 4 years that Alabama plays at College of Charleston. The only difference is it's not the week before the Auburn game. Go on.
Fifth seeded St. Mary's will get Grand Canyon Friday in Spokane. 6th seeded Clemson will get New Mexico Friday in Memphis. 7th seeded Dayton will get 10th seed Nevada Thursday in Salt Lake City, which is going to be almost identical to a home game for the Wolfpack. And then the 8-9 game Mississippi State against Michigan State. There's that Tom Izzo game again Thursday in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I don't like that. Start with the Michigan State game for me.
Well, first of all, if we're going right down the pipe, the Carolina game, we know Carolina's going to get that.
Carolina's going to win. And then go to Michigan State next, only because, what was their record?
19-14, 10-10 in the Big Ten. But Tom Izzo always seems to actually find the right gear to hit. It's 5-5 in their last 10. Yeah, over the course of that, not all that impressive. The big the loss to Purdue was only 6. Indiana only by 1, by 5 against Purdue again. So they play them close. 3 points to Ohio State, 6 to Iowa, 7 to Iowa, but some certainly the win against Illinois, the win against Northwestern, who's a tournament team, the 10-point win over Minnesota in the Big Ten tournament. not the greatest competition, but look at the teams that they lost to. Some pretty good competition for some bubble teams there and played them very close.
Yeah, no, I get that, but Jim, come on. And yes, this is a little homer and me coming out. Ohio State had a better record. Ohio State had a good run in the tournament. They were 6-2 in their last 8. After Holtman was replaced, Michigan State doesn't belong in the tournament, Jim. They don't, and it's almost like they wanted to keep Izzo's streak alive, like they know something.
I still think Ohio State didn't do enough to be.
I'm not saying they did. I'm saying instead of Michigan State, I believe the Buckeyes deserved a shot. Again, I don't believe the Buckeyes deserved a shot.
Because I want to say that ESPN had Ohio State as the second 4 out, and CBS had them as the first 4 out.
Yeah, they didn't deserve a shot in the tournament. I'm merely saying that if you were going to take a middling Big Ten team, Ohio State was a better option. They were the hot team, 6-2 in their last 8. They played really well in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, it took Illinois to overtime. Illinois won the whole damn thing. So yeah, no, I don't agree with Michigan State being in. No disrespect to Tom Izzo, one of if not on the Mount Rushmore of college basketball coaches of all time. A multiple national championship winner, but no, Sparty doesn't deserve the tournament. Sorry.
Although for them to actually get a 9 seed, that's not bubble. That's that large.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. How is a team that, yeah, they had a rough year with a garbage coach, but we're 6-2 in their last 8. Once this kid took over and had a good run in the Big Ten tournament, you know, I think they deserved a shot. There was a couple other ones you mentioned in the first 4 out. It was Ohio State. Who else was it?
Indiana State.
Why is Indiana State, who won a regular season conference championship, not in the tournament, and Michigan State is?
I think it might have been a little bit better body of work by Michigan State on the whole, because if you look at that strength, the 2-7 against the top 25, not very good, but that strength of schedule is 10th, and then the net rank of 24. I mean, listen, if you're on the top 6, if you're on lines 1 through 6, it typically means you finished the regular season in the top 25. Michigan State was not there. They were getting some top 25 votes, as was Mississippi State. But this, I think, is going to be a closer game than people think. But there's part of me, and it's not an anti-Izzo thing. I just like Mississippi State here.
Yeah, normally if I'm not all on board with the team, I go Big Ten when I pick my bracket. As I was flipping through the West, I hit Mississippi State as soon as I did it. I think Mississippi State's going to win this game because you figure they're the ones that bounced Tennessee in the SEC tournament,
yes,
and then played Auburn tough for the majority of that game.
Yes, Mississippi State's starting to find that second gear a little bit.
Exactly.
You said you wanted to talk about the Arizona Long Beach State game. We're going to cover that. We'll come back on that one next. The St. Mary's Grand Canyon game. St. Mary's 26-7, winners of the West Coast against Grand Canyon. 29-4 coming out of the WAC. Grand Canyon's got to win against a top 25 team, despite the strength of schedule being all the way down there at 164. But that net rank puts them in the top 50. That's actually something where they were for a one bid type school like that out of the WAC to get a 12. That actually means that they were on the verge of, had they not won, they possibly could have gotten an at-large.
That's very true. I first heard of GCU as an online Christian school, but I want you to go up a little. Go to the points allowed.
58 against
St. Mary's is going to roll this team.
It's part of me that thinks that too. I would like to see Grand Canyon, the Antelopes, have a good showing here. But yeah, you're right. St. Mary's always seems to find that gear, especially in the first or second round. It doesn't necessarily translate once they get down to the second weekend. at that point. But St. Mary's, I got a feeling you're right. If this was Florida Gulf Coast, aka Dunk U, but this is, you know, instead of FGCU, this is just GCU. I think St. Mary's rolls. I think you're right.
Yeah. I'm with you on that, and I had not hit the button for that game until I saw. Oh, didn't mean to do that. My bad. Until I saw the defensive number. You're giving up less than 60 points a game. That's
Yeah.
a phenomenal number.
Yep. Alabama and Charleston. You're right, Mike. Is not.
I picked College of Charleston because I'm an asshole and I don't like Alabama. But
there's no way in hell that Alabama, even going cross country, loses this game. The top scoring. Remember, Alabama was number 1 in the country for a little bit earlier this season. 9th in the country in net rank. 2-7 against the top 25. Not good, but that number 1 strength of schedule, and this team averages 90 a game.
Yeah, but I will say this: College of Charleston only gives up 72. Only gives up 72 and a half. You know, and they play the Monmouths, the Hofstras, the Northeastern, Delaware. Big up Joe Biden.
Yeah,
you know, are they?
Yeah, Colonial is not the SEC, and you can actually, with some of the, look over the 5 losses in Alabama's last 10. All of those are in the tournament and are on the top half of their brackets. Auburn on the 4 line, Kentucky on the 3 line, Florida on the 7 line.
Do you know what worries me about this though, Jim? Look at the numbers they gave up when they lost.
Yeah, 102,
99, 102,
81,
117,
99, 117. Yeah.
I mean, Kentucky beat the piss out of them. Florida beat the piss out of them twice. It took them overtime to beat Arkansas. They, you know, I think this game is going to be closer than people think. And I'm not going to change my pick. I am going to take College Charleston here.
I like Alabama in this one, but I think you're right. I think Charleston gives them a lot better game than people think. We're now in the bottom half of the bracket. Clemson and New Mexico, the 6-11 game. New Mexico 26-9 coming out of the Mountain West, and Clemson 21-11 coming out of the ACC.
This is the 11-6 upset, Jim.
I think so as well because of how close these played. New Mexico likes to run a little bit more, but the strength of schedule is marginal. The last 10 for Clemson, Wake Forest, Boston College, Notre Dame, those are bad losses.
NC State's a good loss, though, a 1-point loss to a very good team.
But 3 out of your last 4 against teams that weren't even really on the bubble.
And you lose, and that's not good.
New Mexico,
you look almost like Dabo's team.
You know, and especially knocking off San Diego State, winning the Mountain West Conference championship.
Yeah, this is where I think New Mexico wins this matchup. Because when you're talking about it, their only losses to Utah State, who's in the tournament. One of the only losses to Utah State, and you win that conference with San Diego State, who people were arguing should be a higher seed than what they are.
Yep, and San Diego State already a high enough seed as a 5.
Exactly.
The 3-14 game, Baylor and Colgate. Colgate, the champions of the Patriot League, at 25-9 against the Big 12. I don't think that they were the regular season champions.
Houston was a regular season champion.
You're right. Baylor 23-10, coming out of the Big 12 there. Colgate 9-1, but again, look at the competition. Losing to American, Lehigh, Bucknell, Holy Cross twice in there, but Baylor 6-4, losing to the Big 12 champion Iowa State, beating Cincinnati, losing to Texas Tech, but beating Kansas. In there, beating West Virginia, beating Oklahoma, beating TCU. TCU is a tournament team. Texas is a tournament team.
And BYU and Houston beating them, but having close games with the Houston game going to overtime. Yeah, no, I like Baylor in this one.
I do too.
I was going to make the joke. I can't go with the dentistry. I have to go with Baylor. Sorry.
I mean,
It's the
let's
new specs, Jim. I'm making jokes like you.
well, let's also remember Baylor just a couple of years removed from a national championship.
Yeah, yeah, but that's unfortunately it's not college football. There's too much turnover too quickly in college basketball.
Yep. The 7-10 game, very intriguing. The Dayton Flyers out of the Atlantic 10 against
UD.
Mountain West, Nevada Wolfpack. Another very close one, except when you look at that strength of schedule for Nevada being all the way down there at 75, but yet 3-1 against the top 25.
Yeah, this is more about who you scheduled than it is anything else. But yeah, Nevada's 3-1 against the top 5. Let's see who those teams were. Were any of them in the last 10?
Colorado State is in the play-in. New Mexico's in. So their only 2 losses here were against tournament teams.
Yeah, and then of course you have them beating San Diego State, beating Boise, beating Fresno, beating Colorado State a few weeks before that.
And Boise's in the tournament right now. They're one of the play-in games.
Yep.
Dayton loses to Duquesne in the A10 final. Not very impressive from what I've actually seen. St. Louis fired their coach midseason, so that's not saying too much. VCU was this is not the VCU of maybe 5 years ago. Fordham, St. Joe's, not all that impressive. Although good on them, actually. I mean, having to take VCU to overtime, considering you lost to them and only in a defensive struggle just a few weeks earlier.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. Part of me still thinks Dayton wins this game. They always pull that one game in the tournament, no matter who they play or how well they played during the year. They win the A10, they figure out a way to get in, and then they beat a good team in the first round. I think this is what Dayton does year after year after year. I'm going with Dayton.
And then the one that you wanted to talk about, the second-seeded Arizona Wildcats coming out of the Pac-12 against the champions of the Big West Conference, the 21-14 Long Beach State Beach, who I talked about on the Sports Note earlier today. Long Beach State University, up until 2019, were known as the 49ers. Now they are just known as the Beach. Their baseball team is officially got a different moniker, and it is the greatest. It is the second greatest name in all of college sports.
The Dirtbags.
Michael, they are called the Dirtbags.
I love it. Justin Turner went to Long Beach State.
The only school that has a better nickname in all of college sports are the UC Santa Cruz Fighting Banana Slugs.
Yes. Yes. Jim?
We're in the conference with Long Beach State.
Jim, Arizona's going to Arizona. And this Long Beach State team is playing for a guy who already got fired. I got Long Beach State in this game.
I don't see where that's going to be even remotely feasibly possible here. I've got Arizona winning this one going away because Arizona's got a chip on their shoulder thinking that they should have been on that top line, potentially, even though they did not win the Pac-12. Arizona is a very, very good, very young and deep team. And typically when Arizona gets ranked this high, they don't go out that high. But let's double back to Long Beach State. You are correct that Long Beach State is playing for a coach who was fired back on Monday. His name is Dan Monson. If that name sounds familiar, Mark Few was his top assistant at Gonzaga.
That's who that is.
Dan Monson got Gonzaga to the NCAA tournament in back-to-back years, got them to the Elite Eight back in 1998, took the job over at Minnesota, being the next big mid-major prospect to be able to jump to a big program, kind of like a very, very kind of acquiescing how Shaka Smart was with his run at VCU, and then we're going to actually see Shaka Smart here in our final bracket, but did not actually get it to translate as well over at Minnesota. Only one NCAA appearance in his 7 years, and he's now got Long Beach State to their second tournament in his 17 seasons there. He's got 5 conference regular season championships. Did not have the success in the Big West Conference tournament to be able to have that number increase. He's got a couple of NIT berths in there, but it's a great story running through UC Irvine and UC Davis, the top 2 seeds, knocked off Cal State Northridge in their opening round. But Long Beach State, great story. It's not going to turn out the way that you want. They are not going to play St. Peter's.
Well, I'm still going to put him in as my winner in that game because you know what? Arizona, I think, is going to Arizona. They're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to overlook a team. And this team has got – listen, they're playing with house money. Their coach is gone. They're probably going to have guys into the transfer portal. Yeah.
I would love to see it, but I don't see where on God's green earth it's feasibly going to be possible. Outside of Kentucky, I hate Arizona more than any team in college basketball. I would love to see Arizona go Arizona. But there's also part of me that if Arizona makes a little bit of a run, Arizona and Baylor in that second round would be a very, very interesting game.
Real quick, speaking of second round, do you see the women's draw at all?
I saw the 4 number 1s.
LSU is in Iowa's region. That would be round 2.
Wow. Rematch of last year's title game in the second round.
Yeah.
Lastly, we're going to finish up in the South region. And we've got Houston, the number 2 overall seed. UConn was the number 1 against Longwood Friday in Memphis. We've got Marquette as the 2. There's Shaka Smart going up against the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky Friday in Indianapolis. Kentucky ranked 3rd, taking on the champions of the Horizon League, Oakland, Thursday in Pittsburgh. The Duke Blue Devils and John Shire will take on Vermont Friday in Brooklyn. Wisconsin will get James Madison Friday in Brooklyn. 6th seed Texas Tech will take on the champions of the ACC, NC State, Thursday in Pittsburgh. Florida will actually get the Boise State Colorado play-in winner Friday in Indianapolis. And then Nebraska will get Texas A&M Friday in Memphis. Michael, this one might be the most wide open of any of the brackets out there. Any one of the top 7 I could see possibly coming out of this bracket.
Why the fuck are they playing South Region games in Pittsburgh and Brooklyn?
It's just the way that it's the opening round. They'll throw them all over the country. It's once they actually get to the regional final that they'll actually put them in the southern area. If we actually go back, you've got West games being played in Memphis.
In Charlotte. No, I got it. I get it. Like the Midwest, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh. Okay, Salt
Lake City.
Yeah, and I got you. You get the games in Dayton.
In Spokane and Omaha. This is the most intriguing bracket because
it is.
You could have a Kentucky Duke Sweet 16 game on your hands.
Never mind that. You could also have a James Madison NC State.
I'm sorry. Kentucky and Duke would not meet until the Elite 8. Marquette and Kentucky would be interesting. Houston and Duke in the Sweet 16. Florida kind of catching lightning in the bottle, although thoughts go out to that kid. His name eludes me right now.
The one that broke his leg?
Who broke his leg.
Oh,
wow.
geez.
And that's actually where I think had Florida kept this game a little bit closer, they would have potentially landed on maybe a 5 line instead of getting dropped down to a 7, because that's going to hurt them.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Houston, we already can basically pencil in. Houston, for my money, outside of UConn, is the best and most qualified team to be able to make a very, very deep run. They could potentially be in Phoenix in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's definitely somebody that can get there. I'm interested to see what you think. Is I see a lot more lower seeds being able to win in this bracket than any other one out there. I know you said 1 through 7 can get there. I see James Madison and NC State making some serious noise.
Yeah, let's look at them. The Marquette Western Kentucky game, I don't see any scenario where Western Kentucky can really kind of keep this close, even though the points per games are and the opponent's points per games, they're relatively marginal. But the 13th net ranking against 136, the strength of schedule for Western Kentucky, all the way down there at 269. And Marquette's actually getting a couple of guys back healthy. I think Marquette's got a lot of potential here to make a deeper run. Kentucky and Oakland, I don't see Oakland being able to put up much of a game, even though this is not the greatest year for Kentucky with that 62 strength of the schedule. But Kentucky loves to run. They give up 79, but they score close to 90.
Yeah, no, I think Kentucky bounces back from a lackluster regular season. And I don't mean lackluster as in record, I mean as in play. They had their moments, and neither one of us like Calipari to begin with.
Right.
So, for us to say Calipari can have a team bounce back from anything, that means we know how good his team can be. I love James Madison, and I love NC State. I don't know why. Maybe because James Madison's playing Wisconsin. But I love James Madison, and because they're another team that always comes up with something every turn.
There's another one of those 30 win. There's those 30 plus win teams, but they've got that one win against the top 25, the net ranking of 52nd, but yet their strength of schedule is near the bottom of Division One. There are 351 schools in Division One, and their strength of schedule is 325 in the Sun Belt.
See, here's my thing about strength of schedule, though, is you have to play a certain number of conference games. You can't control how shit your conference is or how shit they're playing. So I don't.
I think there's a good piece here with James Madison winning the Sun Belt and those 10 straight wins. And also look at that first one. They beat Akron by 14 as an out of conference game. Sun Belt not nearly as good in basketball as it is in football. But if you look at Wisconsin's last 10, the loss to Illinois earlier today, the upset win in overtime against Purdue. You got to win against Northwestern. You lost against Purdue by 8, lost to Illinois, and then you lost to Iowa. Now, the Indiana and Iowa losses are bad losses because those two teams are not in the field of 68. But every one of those is a close loss to a team that actually finished on a top 3 line.
Yeah, no, I listen, Wisconsin had a very good year, culminating in a Big Ten tournament runner-up. Jim, we always run into these teams that do something every year in the tournament. They always end up winning a game, and you're like, how the hell did they do that? And it's always your James Madisons, your teams like that. Yeah. The thing that worries me about James Madison, Wisconsin is Wisconsin never played really well against teams that could run and teams that could score a lot of points. That's where James Madison comes in.
And I apologize. Look, first couple of games, I did not actually have the CBS thing.
Oh, no,
but there's such a disparity that I didn't really need to.
Yeah, and in this one, you got to think of it this way too. What was James Madison's out of conference schedule? because they were 16-0.
Yeah. I want to also say that they've got maybe the second or third longest winning streak in the country right now.
Something like that. I mean, I closed the phone out, but I had I had
I like
James
the
Madison
Utes here.
here.
I like a 12-5 here.
Same here.
Florida against let's look at this one here for a minute. The last two of the last two in Colorado and Boise, um, against the Gators, who we
Yeah,
actually talked about a few minutes ago. The Gators' strength of schedule. I'm just actually glad my Gators are back in the tournament and actually have a halfway decent seed. Gators love to run. Strength of schedule is in the 38, the net rank of 26. But yet, that's funny is that you look at the strength of schedule at 38, the net rank at 26, and yet they're on the 7 line even before the injury earlier today.
yeah, no, they had a great year. They had a great run at the end, getting all the way to the SEC championship game. But I will say this: Boise had a great year. What was Colorado? Click on Colorado because it'll show you them. Colorado won some games at the end, beating Oregon a few weeks ago. Cal, Stanford, Utah, USC right in a row, losing to UCLA by 4.
And UCLA, as a Bruins fan, UCLA was not very good this year. I want to say UCLA was like 16-16 or something.
Yeah, so started out the wrong way, but then you reel off 8 in a row. USC, Utah, California, Cal, Stanford, Oregon, Oregon State, Utah, and Washington State in the tournament. Look, I think if Colorado wins this game, wins the play-in game, they're going to be the tougher matchup for Florida. If Boise wins,
I don't think Colorado. I think if I can go back to Colorado here for one brief second, look at those last 10. Oregon is the only team on that screen outside of Washington State who's in the tournament.
and they're 2-1 against them.
And Oregon winning the Pac-12 is an 11, and Colorado's a 10. And then the only other Pac-12 team, I think, was Arizona on the 2 line.
Yeah, but I think Colorado's big year. They had some out-of-conference games that they won that were pretty big. I think it's the only way they even get in this thing. But that's another one. I'd like to see Colorado there as the 9 in the 1 bracket, and Michigan State having to play the play-in.
I will say for this much, and yeah, I am going to actually throw some shade and some hands here. Hey, Dion, this is actually how you win in conference.
Oh, no.
Even with the injury, I like the Gators to move on here.
Okay.
For me personally, I just want to see that Florida Marquette game as 2 of my favorite teams in college basketball mixing it up.
Well, that's a heck of a thing that could happen. Let's get to the last couple because we said we weren't going too long. We're at 1 hour and 14.
Yep. Texas Tech and NC State, the 6-11 game. Both teams 6-4. NC State running the table in the ACC, but only getting an 11. They're catching lightning in a bottle. But the Big 12 was a better conference, I thought, this year. Texas Tech losing badly to Houston there, but losing to Texas as well, losing to Iowa State. I mean, when they've lost to some of these ranked teams, they've lost bad.
But look at their wins. You have a win against TCU, a win against Kansas. You beat Baylor, you beat BYU, you beat Oklahoma State, you beat West Virginia.
Yeah, it's but you've got the 10-point win over Baylor, who's in the tournament. You've got the 14-point win over BYU. You've got the 29-point win over Kansas. But again, that's 8 to Iowa State, 14 to UCLF, who didn't even get in. You've got the the 12-point loss to Texas, and then just the annihilation against Houston.
Well, Houston's the number 2 overall seed in the tournament, and you could make an argument they should be the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. I think if Houston would have won the Big 12 tournament, they would be the number 1 seed. But if you look at NC State, yeah, they got hot in the tournament. They're 9-11 in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, they did start off very slow, but big number over Louisville. You know, big win over Syracuse, even though it's a down year. With the losses, Florida State's a bad loss. Pittsburgh's a bad loss. 15 to Duke, bad loss. 9 to North Carolina, but then they sit back, they regroup, and they come out firing. Knocking off Syracuse in the conference tournament, getting their revenge on Duke in that stunner, knocking off Virginia, who was a bubble team, and then the stunner of all stunners, knocking off North Carolina, where there's a lot of people that thought that loss should have kept the Carolina Tar Heels off the 1 line.
It should have, especially a team that was 9-11 in conference. I like Texas Tech here.
I do too.
This is, yeah.
Couple more real quick. As a matter of fact, the last two. Nebraska, Texas A&M, the 8-9 game. Nebraska kind of getting hot down the stretch there. Texas A&M flying a little under the radar. Nebraska 7-3 in their last 10. The loss to Illinois earlier today. You look at the other 3 wins in the conference tournament. None of those teams qualified for the field. As a matter of fact, Michigan actually ended up firing a coach. They lost to Northwestern, who is a tournament team. The loss to Ohio State. That was after the Chris Holtmann firing. That's a little bit of a bad loss, but not enough to be able to keep Nebraska out.
No, and I'm going to go chalk here with this one too. I like Nebraska. I think they're hot at the right time. A&M 9-9 in the conference in the SEC, which, by the way, the SEC was top heavy. You have losses here to South Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Bama. None of them close. And then you do have wins against Georgia, who was terrible. Mississippi State, Ole Miss twice. Once at the end of the year, once in the conference tournament. You beat Kentucky by 10, but then you lose to Florida. I like Nebraska here.
I do too. And then the last one, close to my heart here, the Dukies going up against the Vermont Catamounts. Duke, 10th net rank, 79th strength of schedule, 2-3 against the top 25. Were swept by North Carolina this year. Runs it just shy of 80 a game. Duke 7-3 in their last 10, although they ended up losing down the stretch. They lost their regular season finale to Carolina in a game that, even though that only says 5, was really not that close, because I don't think they led in that game. And then the stunner to NC State in their ACC opener, and then a loss to Wake Forest. But beating NC State, beating Virginia, those are your 2 wins against your top 25 teams. Let's be honest, your record against the top 25. But Vermont 10-0, UMass Lowell, New Hampshire, Albany. You got New Hampshire and UMass Lowell twice within, and actually 3 times against New Hampshire, all within a span of about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, no, this is Duke.
We
didn't even need to. This is Duke. So there's the first round. Real quick,
we're not going to fill the second. This was just a preview of the opening weekend.
Yeah, and then next week, of course, we'll have most of the opening. The opening week will be finished by the time we come to you next week. So, what do you say we take 3 minutes, fill the drinks, hit the translator, and tease next week, because next week's going to be fun.
Yeah, let's do it. We will see you guys here very, very shortly. Again, between 3 and 5 minutes this time.
Be right back.
We said it wouldn't be very long.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be long at all. I got some water and sat back down.
Figure with it being a school night, the second we log off, that's when the melatonin kicks in.
The gummies are upstairs. So, Jim, real quick, one thing in the abbreviated blast, just want to bring this up. I want to send a shout out to my Lady Buckeyes getting the 2 seed in the Albany region. Good job this year out of the women. Phenomenal season. Rough go in the Big Ten tournament. I think with a deep run there, Ohio State would have been a 1 seed in the big dance. But hey, take the 2 and let's run it to the Final Four. Let's go.
We can take 2 minutes and just kind of throw this up here on the screen. Here's the women's bracket. Your number ones are South Carolina, Iowa, USC, and Texas.
I like the scary thing is you see in Iowa gets to play in,
Which will be
hold on, it wouldn't be round 2. Go back up to the top right.
Yeah, they're the 1, and then LSU is wrong bracket. There we go. The Albany region. So they're the 1, and LSU would be the 3. So they would not meet until the Elite 8.
Okay, so that's a 3rd round game there.
Yep.
But go down a little bit. So you could have. All right, so Ohio State's not in the Albany region. They're in the Portland region.
Yep.
It won't happen unless they get to the Elite 8.
Wow, Ohio State a potential Sweet 16 matchup against Paige Buchers and UConn.
That's huge.
There's a lot of good games in here.
There really are. I'm interested to see what Maryland does against Iowa State, obviously, with them beating Ohio State in the tournament. Hey, look, South Dakota State, big up. You got both programs in the tournament.
Yeah, and NC State as well. That 3rd seed out there in the Portland region.
Yeah, that's huge. Look, I think she wins her title.
Caitlin?
Being very honest, I think Caitlin wins her title.
Is anyone going to beat South Carolina? Do they actually finish the dream? Because, well, then again, Indiana, I mean, you could have an Indiana-South Carolina Sweet 16 matchup.
Listen, they're going to have to beat either Michigan State or North Carolina in round 2. Not an easy game.
And you get Notre Dame in that region. I mean, there's a reason why they stack that region so heavy. I mean, hey, you're the best team in the country. You deserve the toughest road.
Agreed. I agree with you. I think the women's tournament is going to give us more less upsets, but the women's tournament has the better storylines.
Yeah, and that one actually kicks off on Saturday, because they start a couple of days later. So they'll actually have 2nd round games on Monday and Tuesday of next week.
Craziness. Pure craziness.
So
Jim,
we only 3 very, very quick things to cover in the blast tonight in no particular order. As you can actually see, the Buffalo Sabres making a little bit of a run. The St. Louis Cardinals bringing back Ali Marmol, and then the Pete Alonso contract situation. Let's actually start with that one in the middle for a moment. What does it say when John Mozeliak actually comes out and the first questions that he asks is, the first thing he really answers is, you guys actually say this like you didn't expect me and him to be back. The way that you finished last year, why are both of you back? I understand St. Louis does not fire a manager after 1 season.
I got nothing.
St. Louis does not go out and have that level of a season.
No, they don't. And if anything, I would have seen Mozeliak fired first, only because he put together a shit roster. Your on-field manager can only do so much with the pieces he's given. He had a shit roster. I think Alex, who also is close to the Cardinals like you are, would say the same thing. Are the Sabres really going to make a run, Jim?
The Sabres, as it stands right now, with 14 games left on their schedule, the Buffalo Sabres sit 5 games. 5 points out of the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Which actually means if the Sabres make a run because their loss yesterday to Detroit, who had lost 7 straight, put them 5 back. The Sabres were 3 back when action began yesterday. If the Sabres make a run and keep going, even though they don't have the games in hand, which means they're going to get some rest here over the course of the last 3 weeks of the season, the last 3-4 weeks of the season. If the Sabres get in, that means that the team that you're wearing has that record all to themselves for the longest playoff drought in history.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Jets aren't going next year either.
No.
So, and let's talk about the last thing. I'm sure you saw Steve Cohen's comments from today, his press conference.
He does not expect that to happen in 2024.
No, he doesn't. And by season 2024 is what he's saying. He cites Edwin Diaz and Brandon Nimmo, who went to free agency and then signed big deals with the Mets to stay with the team. I'm going to say this. Steve Cohen's heart's in the right place because he doesn't want Pete distracted. Look, this is when I drop the Mets preview for the season, you're going to hear a lot of things out of me that you expect and a lot of things out of me you don't expect. But Pete is going to maximize his value, and Pete is going to maximize his contract. Now, there is only one team that would need a first baseman that can maximize Pete's value in this contract, and that's the New York Mets. Steve Cohen and Scott Boras get along very well. And it's conversations where Scott Boras is going right to Steve Cohen. He's not talking to the GM. He's talking to the owner. I think deep down, everybody involved knows this deal is going to get done. And Pete Alonso will be a New York Met for life. As I said before, I said on my show, and I've said on here, it's almost like fate that on the final weekend of 2018, we said goodbye to David Wright, which ripped your heart out as a Met fan. But on opening day 2019, we said hello to the polar bear. So it was bridging that gap to the next guy who was going to carry us as the fan favorite. So this will get done. This will get done, in the core of McNeil, Lindor, Nimmo, and Alonso will stay together for a long time coming. And by the way, you should watch Francisco Alvarez throw dudes out.
So that was easily the quickest blast we've ever had, but for good reason, because it's, first of all, Michael, it's that time, but number two, in terms of nap time, with it being a school night, which I think is now, we're starting to get there should be a counter for that.
Why, how many times I've yawned?
No. What in the hell?
What'd you break?
I just lost one of the things off the soundboard.
Are you fucking serious?
No, not the thing. I'll fix that tomorrow. I got to set myself a reminder.
What's the thing?
What it's time for.
It's time for band practice.
Would you shut up? You just pushed the button already? No! God! No! God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YZ Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the YZ Translator. The best segment. I'm wheezing here. What the hell? The best segment of the night because it's the last segment of the night. Just a reminder to everybody who's new and or hasn't seen it in a while, this is the segment where Jim and I give each other names in and out of the sports world, and we throw out the first thing that comes to mind. Some of the grand favorites, of course, is disclosing Brett Favre to be akin to Boss Hogg, Kyrie Irving, who hit a weird shot today to win a game, being called a douche canoe, That was a nice ascension, by the way, when you did that. I meant to tell you that all that long ago. And then my new personal favorite is the Sporting Sith likening what happened to Kyle Shanahan to a bad Pornhub video. Oh, so James, I have a name for you this evening, and it's one that damn you.
And by the way, those are all in a row. You have the minor, major, and world circuit.
You took some of my thunder, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. James, your first name in the YZ Translator is West Side Zone, Jake Paul.
He's got a bird. His name is Freddie, and tell Freddie you gonna get knocked the fuck out.
Why does Jake Paul look like Glass Joe?
Between the two of them, I mean, everything that's right about the Cleveland brothers, the Kelseys,
Is wrong about the Pauls.
Is wrong about the Pauls.
Yeah.
Your beverages taste like shit.
I gotta say, I do enjoy the primes.
Very
But
few.
that's more Logan than Jake. There's two of them. The watermelon strawberry and the fruit punch.
That's it.
Yeah, I tried the bomb pop one. It was all right. And those, by the way, those are the caffeine ones. Those hydration ones, they have a new endorser, by the way. 2-time Super Bowl champion and MVP Patrick Mahomes.
Did you see the new Subway commercial with
No.
You didn't see it, or you don't want to acknowledge it?
I swear off Subway commercials after.
The fact that they've got foot-long sides, and one of the sides is a foot-long Auntie Annie salted pretzel.
I can't have any of that stuff, Jim.
Yeah, but that was the highlight of my entire trip down there. Not being there, but on the flight down was actually picking up Auntie Annie's the cinnamon sugar ones at Hopkins Airport with my layover. I'm sorry, waiting to catch my flight.
I can't have them. Knock it off. You're such a prick. Just for that, Saturday night, I will have Zaxby's on air. You can't fight fire with this one. It's up the road. Who you got for me, bud?
Michael, your first name in the YZ Translator this evening, Garrett Cole.
But they took my sticky stuff, and I had to put more torque on my elbow in order to throw well.
That came off as very benchwarmer brand.
Hence why I did it that way. I said it to John the other day. This does not shock me at all. He had to put more torque on the elbow when he didn't have the extra grip, and now we're sitting here and they say it's not TJ. Bullshit. Bullshit. They're shutting him down a month to see if the inflammation goes down, if he can throw. That ligament is going to be shredded come June.
I mean, if Trevor Stephan for the Guardians, out of their one of the studs in their bullpen, had a similar type issue, and he's not going to need TJ, but he's done for the year already. What do you think is going to happen with Garrett Cole, who actually throws more pitches but not as high a velocity, and goes out every 5 days?
He's done. James, Your second and final name in the Wisey Translator is Justin Fields.
Scarlet and gray to black and blue of the midway to black and urine, and you ain't even starting. You're toast.
We're going to get into this more next week because it's an NFL episode next week. This was the best move for him. They're only committed to Russ for 1 year.
And yet, what's funny is there's already people saying that out of the 4 teams in the division, he's already maybe the 3rd best quarterback.
I'm telling you,
and that
he's better than people think he is.
And the other side of that equation is that if he doesn't have a bounce back year after his injury, Deshaun Watson is going to be the 5th best quarterback in a 4-team division.
Yeah, I think he's the 5th best quarterback already. That's just me personally. So, James, what do you have for me to close it out?
Staying on that theme, one of the people that was signed in that division, your second and final name to close up the Wisey Translator tonight, Jameis Winston.
Would you shut up?
Oh, wrong.
Well, I figure I'll grab crab legs and the other guy will grab actual ones. Just what the fuck?
You figure you've been better off going to Baltimore so we can get the crab cakes.
Guy who got you to the playoffs. Schmuck who threw 30 picks and 30 touchdowns in the same year. Let's sign this one. Somebody said that Deshaun Watson is like a mortgage-backed security in 2008 on Facebook.
4 quarterbacks in that room and not one of them can stand in the pocket and make a throw.
4 quarterbacks in that room and not one of them have a goddamn brain cell to memorize a playbook. Of course, that was like that when Johnny Manziel was there too, but I digress.
I don't know. DTR, going to UCLA, he's got to actually have some intellect. The problem is it doesn't translate on the field because he doesn't have the athletic gifts.
Very true. So, James, next week's going to be pretty monumental. We're back in our normal time slot. It is finally happening. Saturday night. Jim, you're saying that's today.
God damn it.
Saturday night, March 23rd. That's all right. Saturday night, March 23rd, our normal time slot, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We will finally have the 4 horsemen of the Wisey Apocalypse on one screen. An all NFL episode breaking down the hilarity, the hysterics, and the plain fucking stupidity that has been the NFL since the new league year hit. Jim, myself, the Sporting Sith John Rice, and from row 7, Alex Ruiz. Dude, we have waited for this night for 2 years. The full Wisey Elite under one roof. Well, not really one roof because, you two were in Cleveland, Alex is in Chicago, and I'm all the way to hell down here. But on one broadcast.
The only time we've ever actually had 4 was you, me, Alex, and Willie for
postseason preview.
Yeah.
That wasn't even a Wise Guys episode. That was a big Recon episode.
Yep.
So this is the first time we're going with the 4-pack on the Wise Guys. But more importantly, this is how jacked we are. We're going to have a logo for this episode. Just this episode.
Oh. Do you want to say it or should I? The new Wise Guys logo is essentially done.
It's done. So come April, our first episode in April will not be until the 13th, as I will be out of town on the 6th. But April 13th, we will have the new Wise Guys logo. We got the 4 Horsemen episode this week. Lots of stuff coming. Lots of stuff coming. So with that, Jim, I think it's time to go to bed. We do have to get up for work tomorrow morning.
Yep. I'm going to actually try and see if I can maybe sneak in another half hour of Warframe real quick to wind down.
You do that.
I can go kill some Grineer and some Corpus with a explosive bow.
You're killing me.
Or
You're
a
killing me, dude.
sword.
Well, good show, my man.
Need to actually start blowing through to be able to get this down. We're going to close this up at just over 145.
In our defense, we haven't had an off the rails segment, but maybe once this year.
Yeah.
We have been so content heavy, and it's not stuff we can really lop off.
But wait until next week, because we'll probably we might actually want to figure out if we can start early, because there's no way we're going to be done in 2.5 hours. We're going to go 3 hours next week with the 4 of us.
I'm leaving for Palm Coast the next morning. Steph already said, I told her, I said, it's going to be a long one. Alex and John are going to be on. She goes, yes, that's the trip, the kissing of the ring. And she goes, oh, well, you can sleep in the car on the way to my dad's. I went, that's going to happen anyway. So we will see you guys next Saturday with the episode we have waited for since we really got these two guys on here the first time.
Because all 4 of us have actually got vested interest in some of the moves that went down.
Never mind some of them. All the big ones.
Yeah.
Especially someone who's really not happy today. And most days for that matter. We'll see you guys next week.
Everybody take care. Good night.